Hey friends, I feel like each time I set up the computer, it's like completely new. Maybe at some point I will get more comfortable. It's so nice to see you again. We are back together for flow stitching through the mother wound. And just so I don't forget, I want to say upfront that I am not a psychologist or a mental health professional, and these topics, especially this first one, is pretty heavy. So please take such good care of yourself. Get yourself your coziest clothes, your drink that feels good, your quiet music, light a candle, do whatever feels best for you. But know that if at any point you don't feel like you're stay in that range that's called the window of tolerance, right? That if you feel uncomfortable, but you still feel safe, um, that's great. But if you're starting to feel like you don't feel safe, like you're wanting to shut down or run away, pause and please reach out to someone. There's crisis lines all over the world. Your doctor may be able to connect you with a therapist or your therapist if you already do have one. So now that we've got that out of the way, pause if you want to get your little cozy things. Get yourself a needle, some type of thread, whatever feels good to you, some scissors, and some fabric. I've done a little sewing since we last talked. I've got my first little heart patchwork collage stitched down here. And I'm going to, I think, use a piece of my great grandmother's uh, apron that she made. Or maybe I can't decide. Maybe some of this little antique lace that I have. Either that or this to do like a little ruffle around the edge here. As I'm chatting, I will decide. I don't know, that could be fun, my little, not positive if there's enough, but there's a hole. I might do that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna cut it down or if I want to leave it big like that. Part of me wants it to be thinner. Because this is something that I am going to choose to put up in my life. I can't decide. Either I'm gonna have it be like a cozy blanket that I sleep with, or I'm going to hang it up. Either way, I'd like to keep it close by because I think this is going to be really healing work. And I want to be reminded of it. So anyways, here we are. We've had our introduction. You know the routine of slow stitching is not about following a pattern. There is no right way to do this. You can do whatever stitches and use whatever fabric that feels good to you. Please pause whenever you want, do whatever you want. You are in charge. I am not in charge. There's no right way to do this. So here we are. We are looking at the mother wound based on the book by Bethany Webster called, and I brought it this time to show you, and I'm going to read some from it. Get this in the screen. Discovering the Inner Mother, a guide to healing the mother wound and claiming your personal power by Bethany Webster. So like I mentioned, it just came in from the library, so I haven't read it cover to cover, but I have read quite a bit of it and listened to several podcasts. And what I'm basing our time together on is the piece of Bethany's work that talks about the four areas in which we are affected by the mother wound. So there's the personal, the cultural, the spiritual, and planetary. And I think this is a really beautiful framework to understand all of the parts that are affected really, I mean, we call it the mother wound, but really it is talking about patriarchy and this basic concept that most of our experiences have been affected by, which is the idea that women are less than men. And it affects everyone, not just women. Okay, let me think for a minute about how I'm going to want. I think I'm just going to cut this in half right at this edge here. So what we are going to look at today is the personal. So this is how in our very early days, even starting in the womb, because they say that everything that is experienced by the pregnant person, and I'm going to use pregnant person throughout this rather than mother, because there are trans men and non-binary people who don't identify as women who can be pregnant as well. So everything experienced by the pregnant person, it affects the growing baby, especially mental health stuff. And so starting from, conception, we are so affected by the person who is carrying us in their belly. And we're so affected by that relationship, whether it be that, the person who carried us is the person that we grow up with, or if it's that the person who carried us ends up giving us up for adoption, or if we're taken for some reason. Let me see if I can get this a little higher. Or if we, if our parent dies early on, there's so many ways that can look, but all of it affects us so much. And the first place that we learn about patriarchy is at home with that primary parent. Or I'm going to go ahead and switch us. So we just are looking at sewing. Okay. Yeah, so the first quote I want to share with you all was just stunning to me, and it really, I think it's a nice place to start, and we're going to finish with it too. So this is on page 86 of the book, and it says, hold on, let me see where. Yeah, one of the most powerful things we can embody is, I don't owe you a version of me that distracts you from your responsibility to face your own pain. Oh my heavens. Let's just let that soak in for a minute. I'm going to read it one more time. I don't owe you a version of me that distracts you from your responsibility to face your own pain. Isn't that just exactly what it is to be codependent, right? To think that your job that you owe to the people around you to distract them from their pain so that they're okay. That is just wild to me. That is exactly what I have been doing my whole life in every relationship. And that's what I thought a nice person was, a good person. And I thought I really needed to be a nice, good person, right? I just think that's wild. When I had the realization that I was not helping people by putting up with them using me as, to distract them from their own pain, it was the greatest breakthrough of my life. And I wrote a book about it. I called it Holy Shit, because the concept was taken from Thich Nhat Hanh's concept, no mud, no lotus, which is based off of the acceptance in Buddhism of suffering as a part of life. And the next step that I took from that, because he explains that the mud and all of the like dead plant debris and dead insects at the bottom of a lotus pond that are like so gross and taking up that just composting into the bottom of the pond, that is what creates that gives the nutrients for the lotus flower to grow. And without all of that dead mucky muck at the bottom of the pond that comes from all these gross things and the pressure of the water and the heat of the sun kind of baking it and decomposing it so grossly, without all of that, the lotus flower would not be able to grow because it would have no nutrients, right? So when I realized, okay, my own challenges, my own pain is for my growth, that I can let, through doing work like this, through doing my slow stitching, through learning about spiritual concepts, through therapy, through meditation, all the things that I do to try to heal my own trauma, I am allowing all of that pain to compost and be turned into something really nutritious for my own growth. But when I try to take other people's pain away from them, whether it be my mom's, my ex's, my kids, what I'm doing, even though I think I'm being nice and helpful, I'm actually stealing from them the opportunity that they would have if they composted their own pain. So I'm stealing their growth opportunity. It's basically like they have this shit that, a pile of shit is not fertilizer. It won't work. You can't just put shit onto plants. They won't grow, but it needs to be cultivated and composted. And so that part is their responsibility. I can't compost their shit for them. And if I try to take their shit away from them, they won't even have the chance to compost it. So it's not my responsibility, and I can't control whether they choose to compost their shit, but it really is a holy opportunity. These challenges are so holy because they give us this chance at liberation and freedom and a beautiful life. And when we take other people's shit, whether it be that they treat us poorly or they use us or they don't respect our boundaries or they expect us to, like this quote is saying, distract them from their own pain, we are literally stealing their opportunity for growth. And so the actually more compassionate thing to do is to let them face their pain. And that shifted everything for me because I was so hell-bent on being nice and compassionate all the time that I wasn't letting them. And I had to frame it that way in order to release from it. And I still struggle with it, of course. But that was huge for me. So I love that this quote basically captures that same idea. That when we think it is our responsibility or that we owe people to distract them from their responsibility to face their own pain, we are reinforcing this mother wound and ultimately reinforcing the patriarchy that is harming all of us, right? Not just people identified as women. It harms everybody. Yeah. So let's take a couple of deep breaths as we sow for a minute and kind of come back to this idea that the patriarchy has created this mother wound, that it's often reinforced through women who are trying to keep each other safe, right? And that what it can look like when it manifests are some of the things that we went through in the introduction. So feeling less than, because that's that's the basic definition of the patriarchy, right? Is that women are less than men, comparing ourselves to others. So when we're competitive with other people assigned female at birth, or women identified people or femmes, that comparison, that competitive, jealous behavior, those double binds, which a double bind is like, for example, be smart, but not too smart, right? I really faced that one. I was so into school, and I really am an academic person. I love learning. And I realized really quick that, I was in the math group, the highest math group, and it was me and a bunch of boys. And all the way through, it was me and a bunch of boys. And they didn't like it that I was there, even to the point that when I was in high school, 3 of the other top students in the class got together and did the math to figure out what GPA they would need to beat me and how they could manipulate their GPAs to beat me by taking they took a free what's it called? Period. A free period during the days, because somehow mathematically, I still don't understand how they did it, but somehow mathematically that would make it so that I couldn't get a higher GPA than them. And they were so threatened by the fact that I would get a higher GPA than them that they went to all this trouble. And I took it to the principal, and I got to be valedictorian because I showed the principal that they had been trying to rig the system so that I couldn't. But that's a great example of how they weren't trying to stop each other from getting the highest GPA. They worked together to try to stop me. And I really do believe that's because I was identified as a woman at that point, and they didn't think a girl should beat them. So, okay, so be smart, but not too smart, be sexy, but not too sexy. That one really confused me too, because I was raised in evangelical Christianity, and I was like, what? I don't get it. Am I supposed to be like a nun, or am I supposed to be like a attractive nun or something? It's always so confusing. Overworking, burnout, exhaustion, feeling like there's something wrong with you. We talked about this one in the introduction. Okay, this one's interesting. A feeling of not being real, having to put on a happy face. Oh gosh, have I felt that? It's like when you're performing constantly to please others, you've got this happy face on and you're playing this part of the nice, good girl. You start to feel like maybe you don't even exist. Have you felt that? Boy, have I felt that. Yeah, boy, have I felt that. I just want to point out, side note, my I had been always sewing with like a doing the in and the out. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let me get some thread here. Oops, that's also an edge. If I need to get a new chunk. I'm going through this thread fast. But I did sew for like an hour, so guess I do need another chunk. Anyways, when I do like that, in and out, and try to pull it through, it is so much harder. It takes so much more physical effort to get it in and out, and my elbow has really been hurting me. And so today I was like, oh, what if I just go in and pull it down and then up and come out? And the 2 reasons that I wasn't doing that were, one is it takes longer. So I had this pressure, which is definitely part of this whole situation, to do it fast, right? To be more efficient. And that is part of this mother wound for sure, because I'm just sewing with you all. I don't need to be anywhere. I don't need to finish this. And then the other reason to do that, because there is no finishing of this, right? There's nothing to finish. And then the other reason that I was doing it like that was because it looks better, right? Even that word, it looks better. No, there's nothing ultimately better. The stitches are spaced out more neatly, maybe is the word I could use without judgment, when I do it like that. When I don't, they're all less neat. You can see the difference, right? So like these, they don't look straight on this side. Because I was doing the up and then the down. But what am I trying to do it neatly for? Who is this for? And what, even if it was for somebody, what are they going to say? Oh, your stitches don't look good on this side. Gosh, right? It just affects every little second of our life. I just want to pick my little self up and say, gee, many crickets. I often tell my kid to tell me, CTFD, calm the F down. Because I need that reminder. I am such a stress case. Okay, so let me orient myself where I am here. I did sort of a double row on each of them. So I think I'm going to go in right here and get my double row on this side. Okay. Deep breath, everyone. Wiggle your little shoulders. Let me bring myself up here. Wiggle your little shoulders and your neck. Bring your shoulders up to your ears. Drop them down. Stretch your arms up. Reach backwards. Open up your chest if you can. Pause and take a break if you want to go to the bathroom. How many people do you know who are assigned female at birth who constantly are holding their pee? What is that about? Another way to be like, oh, we don't have needs. Pushing through is not good for us. So pause this if you need to go to the bathroom. Pause this if you want to go get a piece of candy or something to drink. Take it easy. Right? All right, let's look at a few more of these ways that the mother wound manifests. Okay, feeling of being stuck, unable to make changes. That's a huge one for me. I think I've mentioned before that when I do my parts work with my therapist, the word that always comes up, no matter what, is that I feel trapped. Yep. Because you don't feel like you're in charge. You know, there's always someone bigger and more powerful who's in charge. There was one time with my parts that it was my 8-year-old self. I was in a chimney, trapped by all those, like standing with a chimney around me, trapped by all the bricks. And I was hiding in there. Okay. Excuse me. Next one, loneliness, depression, and disconnection, and feeling the need to dominate others. So see how when I'm trying to be better than you, or I'm trying to be perfect, I can't be very close and I will feel alone. Because if I was actually vulnerable with you and showed you my imperfections, that's something that I really care about my videos and stuff on YouTube and on here, like not trying to look like I know exactly what I'm doing, not having it act like so polished and perfect, right? Because when I do that, I'm hiding from you who I really am. And then I can't feel really loved by you because I feel like I have to cover that up, and I'm always worried about making sure that you think that I'm better than you or that I'm perfect. I remember my grandma, she never, the whole time she was married to my grandpa, which she married my grandpa after, like when I was 9, she, the whole time she was married to him, 17 years before he passed, she never once let him see her without makeup. So she woke up after he fell asleep and washed her face. And then she woke up before he woke up and put on makeup. Can you imagine if the person that you were supposed to love the most dearly, if you were so scared that they might not be happy with you if they saw your actual face? I think there's a lot of people. I think that was an expectation of a lot of people who do that. And when I was 13, my mom took me to Nordstrom's and had me go to the Estee Lauder counter and get my makeup done. And then it was an expectation that I was going to wear makeup every time I left the house after that. And I really thought maybe there was something wrong with my face, right? And now I will tell you, it's been very interesting. I have been taking a low dose of testosterone for a little over a year. And it was related to, I was having a really terrible time with perimenopause symptoms and mood swings and hot flashes. And I was really struggling. And I did a lot of research about perimenopause and talked to my doctor a bunch of times and talked to a psychiatrist and just really tried to figure out what would help me. And they suggested a lot of the typical hormone therapies and antidepressants and things, but they all had such terrible side effects. And because I identify as transgender and non-binary, they had mentioned that I could look at testosterone. And I'm not interested in being like a man. And so I hadn't been interested in testosterone for the sake of like being more manly. But when I read more about it and found out that in lots of other countries it's used for perimenopause, I was like, well, let's try it. And lo and behold, I feel 1,000% better. But where was I going with that? Oh, that it has also, so psychologically, it has just made my life like 2,000% better. But it has also resulted in some physical changes. Most people still perceive me like out and about on the street as as a woman. It's not like I'm being mistaken for a man, but I do feel like it has changed my face and like the shape of my face and the quality of my skin. I feel like my skin looks older, my pores are bigger, which like is not, it doesn't hurt, it's not painful. There's also more hair on my face, but because of the way that I was trained to believe that these things mean I'm bad, right? I need to cover this up with like makeup or shave it off or whatever, that those things were taught to me that those were bad or dangerous to look with those characteristics as a person who is supposed to be a woman. I have noticed that I feel like anxious about it. And I've been like, oh no, is this make me ugly and is ugly bad? And that's been so interesting because ugly is made up. Ugly doesn't have a definition. It's not like you can say, you could say something like, it is raining, right? And you can say either it is raining or it isn't raining. But ugly is just a whole bunch of made up things. This gal, what's her name again? Ooh, I'm going to drop the book. Bethany Webster. She says that the definition we've been given for like acceptable woman is young, white, skinny, rich, long hair, no hair anywhere else, long hair on your head, but no hair anywhere else, makeup, tight clothes, big boobs, on and on and on. And so as my body has been going through these changes, I've been thinking, oh my gosh, it makes me feel like I'm in trouble. I'm doing something wrong. And that's another layer of like when we cover up these things and that we think make us not okay, then we're communicating to the world, you should cover up those things too, or I'm not going to love you. And this piece is really interesting. This page 82. Just skip ahead to this. Well, I'll just mention it and I'll come back to it because I want to finish this list. When we cover these things up, we reinforce you have to follow the rules in order to be loved and accepted. And I think that's what's really sad and dangerous, is that we're passing on. When we follow the rules, we are a part of passing on the rules, right? Because we communicate to the people outside of us, these rules are important. Now, I'm not saying never wear makeup or you're not allowed to shave your legs or something like that. I'm just saying when we communicate like this is important or necessary, then we're passing them on. We'll come back to that. But let me read the rest of this list because I do think it's important to notice that some of the things, especially like me, when I was criticized by my family of origin and community of origin and told that I had mental health problems, they blamed me as having like a personality flaw. Whereas now I can identify these things that I was criticized for are just a result of patriarchy and not me being a problem. So we talked about the loneliness and the depression and the disconnection. So that comes from like having to cover up and not be authentic, right? And make us feel very lonely and depressed and disconnected. Feeling the need to dominate others. That's the like, I need to prove that I'm better than you so that I can stay safe. Rigidity, let me blow my nose. Rigidity and perfectionism. So that's like, I've got to follow these rules to be safe, right? And then excuse me, when I communicate that I'm needing to be perfect, it makes other people think there's something wrong with them if they're not perfect, or they are trying to be perfect too. Okay. Avoidance of long-term relationships. I feel a lot of pressure to be in long-term relationships, so I don't know quite what that one is. Over-functioning and emotional caretaking of other people. Codependency and merging with others. So that one's huge. The role that you play. I just talked with another soccer mom about this. The role becomes your only identity. So the roles can be a part of your identity, but when you exist only as your roles, that's where it can get really isolating and depressing, right? So I'm only a mom. I'm only a partner. I'm only a worker, right? And there's no, or I'm only worker, mom, partner, right? Not having any part of you that's just you. So what things, is there anything in your day that is just about you? that's not about you being a role, right? This is what I started to do about a year and a half ago, taking 10 minutes to do something that was just about me. And it couldn't be TV or scrolling. Because I find that the TV and the scrolling is like just reflects exhaustion. I don't do those when I'm like excited and want to have fun. I do those when I'm exhausted, right? So that it couldn't be that. But my first thing that I did, because it was the only thing I could think of, was I read. I read a book that felt like fun to me. And I did it, made myself do it for 10 minutes. And I'll tell you, claiming that 10 minutes when I wasn't like fixing the house so it would be nice for my kid, or making my kid a snack, or doing something that would earn money. I was so scared to do anything outside of what was helping others, that it was actually, it felt like a little panic attacky to sit there for 10 minutes and read a book just for pleasure. Not a book to get better and heal. It was fiction. And it was wild. It was so painful at first and so scary. And I had to like set a timer, force myself to do those 10 minutes. But you know what it led to? It led to me wanting to paint, wanting to sew, wanting to try out funky recipes that my kid was not going to like. So it was only for me. Wanting to go sit in the sun. I ended up buying these recliner chairs for me to kick up my legs and sit with a book in the sun. This felt really wild to me. So, yes, these are ways that we reclaim ourselves outside of those over functioning and emotional caretaking and codependency, merging with others. Harshness, lack of compassion for yourself, that inner critic was my only voice for the first 40 years of my life. Fear of being alone. This was huge for me when I first got divorced. Feeling unable to set boundaries. I felt like boundaries were mean. We talked about that assertiveness. Over functioning and doing emotional labor for others. We're going to get more into the emotional labor in a minute. Addiction, depression, eating disorders, right? Ooh, doggy. Okay, so let's take a couple deep breaths. We've been together for almost 30 minutes. Let's see, I don't want to overwhelm us. So if you're feeling like you need a break, pause it and take a break, okay? Let me just look at my notes here. Okay, tie this. Take a few deep breaths. Take a moment to stretch if you want. I'm going to tie this off and take a sip of my sparkling water mixed with a splash of cranberry juice, which is my favorite treat. It's my exorbitant when I was the most poor. Well, it probably wasn't until it was a year out of the most poor, but when I was still really struggling financially, my splurge was I would allow myself to buy sparkling water, the cheapest non-brand one, but $2.50 or something for a pack of sparkling waters. And that felt like the biggest treat. I don't like water. Plain water. I like sparkling water. So now I make it even fancier. I buy a thing of cranberry juice and I put a splash of cranberry juice in it so you can't see it, but so it's like a fun pink color. It gives it just a little bit of flavor. It feels like such a treat. And I was so happy, you all, when I went to the urogynecologist because I had all this incontinence that was related to having my kid. And if you don't know, you don't have to pee your pants just because you had babies. There are things they can do to help you with that. if you go to this doctor called a urogynecologist, it's not a gynecologist, it's a URO gynecologist. And they have all these things that they can help you with if you're a person who pees your pants because you had a baby or for any other reason. I was shocked and I'm so happy, and I'm waiting for this procedure that they're gonna do. I'm on, it's like a long waiting list apparently. I'm so happy. Oh, so anyways, that doctor told me that the whole drink 8 glasses of water pressure is baloney, that there's no medicalness to it. Now, I am not a doctor, so talk to your own doctor. But I was feeling so much pressure to do that, and I was peeing 3 times a night because I was drinking so much. And she was like, just drink what you want. She also said sparkling water is irritating to your bladder and that watch out for it. But I was like, you know what? It's my happy thing. So I'm going to drink as much sparkling water as I want. But I'm not going to make myself pressure to drink more of anything because she said that's baloney. So probably another patriarchy thing. Let's blame it all on the patriarchy. Okay, I'm going to start putting this little bit of my great-grandmother's apron on now. Has a little ruffle on the edge here. Again, do what feels fun. This is not a pattern. Okay, so let's get to the next chunk. I thought this part was really wild. She talks about how traditions, hanging on to traditions, can be really oppressive if you're just doing it because you think it's what you should do. This really jumped out at me because I know a lot of people, assigned female at birth people especially, but who think like, I've got to do this extravagant cream corn dish for Thanksgiving because it's tradition and my grandma did it and my great grandma did it and everyone will be sad if I don't do it. It's like, and then you're in the kitchen for 7 hours and you don't even like the cream corn. What's that about? Order a freaking pizza. Is it about making this fancy cream corn or is it about spending time together? You know, baloney. And I've got to, stay home from my job because having a mom at home is so important to raise my kids. Is it? If you're miserable and it's not authentic for you, then baloney. These traditions that we put ourselves pressure on, that could be just really, and if it's something that feels oppressive, or is straight up oppressive, then let it go, right? So this point that she made in this part of the book, it's on page 82. Let's see where my little finger thing is. So doing a ruffle is like a little bit, I do have to do that understitch. Obedience in exchange for love. So this is wild. So the message of patriarchy, she says, is compliance is required in order to be accepted. Wow. How does that hit you? Compliance is required in order to be accepted. That hits me really hard. I feel like that is definitely the message I got growing up. Compliance is required in order to be accepted. And she says whether a mom or caregiver is being neglectful or invasive, it reinforces that message of patriarchy, that compliance is required in order to be accepted. So this is an interesting thing she talks about, that a mom can either be, or that mom figure can be trigger in us that we're being abandoned or that we're being invaded. I never thought, I've thought a lot about the abandonment thing, but the invaded thing is really interesting. What do you think about that? So like, I can see now how there were invasive parts when like a parent is like too much in your business or needs you too much, right? Like hugs you or kisses you and you don't feel like it. Like my kid used to always hate kisses, and so I wouldn't kiss him. Um, when you feel like there's like an aunt or a grandparent who like hugs you and you don't want to be hugged, or they like want to hang out with you every day or talk to you every day and it's too much. That's invasive, right? And why are they doing that? And they're communicating to you that you should want to do that with them and that you're a bad kid or you don't love them enough if you don't give them what they want. It's like, again, it goes back to that um emotional labor and like compliance is required in order to be accepted, that you should do what they want as a way to, because you owe them your love. Ooh, right? How much of that have we done for our moms and our grandmas and our sisters and, you know, parents in general? But really that like, um, you know, letting them be too much or not enough, right? And what's interesting here is that um, we're not going through this because we're wanting our mom to do something different or blame her. Everyone's just been passing this stuff on because they didn't know, right? And because they really thought that we're supposed to heal each other's wounds, but we're not. So we're not waiting for, you know, a lot of us, our parents may be dead. So we're not waiting for our parents to come fix all of this for us. But what we are doing is acknowledging the way that being loyal to the patriarch within our parents or within ourselves has resulted in these really harmful behaviors and patterns that don't feel good and that don't help us as a world community, right? And so we acknowledge it so that we can come and heal, be a parent to ourselves, right? Reparent ourselves and come and say, hey, I remember when you felt like you had to kiss or hug this person. And I want you to know that if someone comes up to you in your life and is a big hugger and you don't feel like hugging them, you can say no, thank you. And that's how you heal it. You know, you're not waiting for or being just fall apart in misery that you didn't get what you needed as a kid. You give it to yourself now in whatever way that you can, you know, slowly. And you start to heal that inner child that needed those things by giving it to them because now you're the adult, right? So this phrase I thought, or part I thought was really interesting. It says, in order to be fully empowered, actualized, and fulfilled, which, what do you think when you hear those words? When I hear empowered, actualized, and fulfilled, that sounds dangerous to me, especially because, you know, I was raised in evangelical Christianity, which women are supposed to be not empowered. Women are supposed to be submissive. Actualized, what does that even mean? You know, women are not supposed to become anything. Self-actualized, that makes me think of self-actualization. So women are not supposed to become a self. They're supposed to become a servant, right? A server to their husband and their children. So definitely not self-actualized. Fulfilled, only you're supposed to be filled through motherhood and serving your husband, right? So wow, those words sound dangerous to me. How do they sound to you? So this is what she's acknowledging. She's acknowledging that this is a dangerous path to choose because it threatens this system of patriarchy. And the patriarchy is not a gentle peacemaking tradition, right? The patriarchy is here to dominate and oppress us because it needs our submission to operate. It doesn't work without our submission. And so if we think we're going to be able to heal from the wounds from patriarchy without ruffling some feathers and stirring some shit up, then we are going to be pretty shocked, right? So in this part, she really goes through that this is a risky, radical thing to do, and that there are going to be responses, and that likely people within your own family system are going to push back. You may be labeled the problem or the black sheep. She said at one point that it's usually the healthiest people in the system that start to point out this is something's wrong here, and people don't want to hear it, right? They're going to try to shut you up and try to maybe even make you look bad, say you're the crazy one. Definitely what happened to me, right? You're the crazy one. You're the problem. There's something wrong with you if you're rattling this stuff up. Oh, it's a thunderstorm outside right now, so you might have just heard the thunder. I like that because that's what we have to be. We have to be like lightning, right? Willing to come in loud, and people might be scared or upset by us. And if you don't feel able to do that, that's okay. You don't have to do it all at once, right? Because this is hard, and you can do it in little ways, like starting with just, when it's time to get something to drink, don't just get the cheapest, most basic thing that you have to do, try something little, like getting yourself something fun to drink that you like, or try something little like sitting for 10 minutes and stitching just for fun, not to make something fancy, not to make something perfect, not because somebody had a baby and they need a baby blanket, just for fun. Or reading for 10 minutes, right? Or sitting in the sun and just looking at the birds. So those are little ways. You don't have to do the whole thing all at once. But she does, make sure to name that this is going to have some ramifications and people are not going to like it. So she says, in order to be fully empowered, actualized, and fulfilled, we must be disloyal to the patriarch within our mothers, and consequently, the patriarch within ourselves. Right? It makes me feel nervous. Disloyal. That's not a word that I was taught was nice, right? Disloyal to the patriarch within our mothers. So I like how she words it that way, because it's not that we're disloyal to our mothers. We're being disloyal to the patriarch within our mothers, which is, doesn't that little ruffle look fun? That's, that's what we're challenging. We're challenging the patriarchy that was put upon our mothers. So they may feel rejected or challenged by it. And if you're willing to confront this as a gift to yourself and as a gift to the world, it may come with this, and she talks about the mother ceiling, which I think is a great way to put it, that we're often responding to sort of like the what cultural expectations our own mother or caregivers or family put out are sort of like only so far as we can go. So she says, do you think I have to shrink to be loved? If I give to myself, I deprive others. I major have that one. If I'm seen as powerful, no one will love me. One of my mom's best friends was single when we were growing up, and she had gotten a PhD. And my mom specifically said at the like celebration for her getting her PhD, I think it was something like that. My mom said, this is why she's not married, because she's so highly educated that she's intimidating men and they don't like that. And so keep that in mind. And I was this little academic that loved school so much. And I thought, oh my gosh, okay, I better not be too smart or no one's going to want to marry me. And if no one wants to marry me, that's dangerous. Whereas like now I want to say, it's okay, but I get it. It was dangerous for a single woman. Even now, it's harder. It is harder to be a single person, right? Having one income is much harder than having two incomes. So I get it. But at the same time, what part of myself was I not loyal to in order to be loyal to the patriarchy in that moment? And what part of my mom's self was she not able to be loyal to because she had to be loyal to the patriarchy in that moment when she knew that this child of hers loved learning, you know? So it's harmful for all of us, right? And that's sort of the part I want to end on, is that this is grief work, right? That these let's see where my other little piece of yellow fabric slid to. 1 second. I think it fell to the ground maybe, but it's so pale that I might not be able to see it. Where are you? Hold on. Oh, here it is. Okay. So this is really, talking about this stuff, it brings up grief because this is sad, right? It's sad that a whole group of people have gone through this, and it's sad to think about our moms and our grandmas. It's sad for me to think about my grandma who stayed with someone who was really abusive because, she probably didn't have the option to not have that be her reality. And so there's grief here. And I really invite you to notice that and to take this as slowly as you want. Reach out for support. Find a medical, behavioral health professional who can support you as you go through this. Journal. Journaling is so powerful. Talking to your children or to your parents if they're still alive about memories that you have, and share in the sadness, right? Think about, wow, I think about my grandma, who was an incredibly skilled quilter and who, was only able to do it for fun and wasn't able to do something like this and try to make a business out of it. I think about her early life. She was a very accomplished ice skater, and how she probably was not able to continue that because she needed to get married and have kids. I don't know the whole story, but I wonder if she would have liked to be a coach, or, she did end up being a teacher, but in what ways were our family limited? In what ways were we limited? In what ways are you currently limited? In what ways are you affected by patriarchy right now? And I think it's really worth it to have big feelings about it and to take care of yourself in those feelings, and go through, like we talked about in the grief workshop, go through the denial and the anger and the bargaining and the depression and the acceptance, and think about that serenity prayer. We can't change the whole world. We can't just make patriarchy go away, so how can we find the wisdom to not try to fight other people, but to try to show up and change within ourselves, how we treat ourselves, how we treat other people, how we can help to, stop being loyal. How can we be disloyal to the patriarchy in little ways? so that we don't pass it down, so that we don't reinforce it in our children and in our relationships and with ourselves. And how can we show each other and show ourselves that it's possible to be loved without obedience, that love doesn't actually require obedience? This is huge, 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 huge. How can I show up for myself and my children and say, and my relationships with everyone, and say, I don't require you to obey these rules or any rules in order to love you. I just love you. I just love you. And we can do this through setting boundaries and through being authentic. So, every time I go out of the house as myself with my shaved head and my wacky clothes and my facial hair and my wrinkles and my body being just the way it is, not perfectly anything, every time I go out, I give other people permission to do that too. And I show my kid, I'm not scared to be exactly who I am, right? Every time I say to someone, actually, ooh, big thunder, the world agrees. Every time I say, actually, my pronouns are they, them, and somebody looks uncomfortable, I am going out there and saying, authentic is not dangerous. It's not scary, and as more of us do that, the safer it'll get, and then the other part that she says is how to go out here and model it is setting boundaries. And that one's incredibly hard, disappointing people, it is so hard for me to disappoint my kid to say, actually, the other night he wanted me to, I don't know, we were laying in bed and I was reading him his stories and doing the whole, sing him to sleep thing. And he wanted me to turn off the fan, I think, or turn on the fan. And I said, well, how about you do it? And he's 11. So, he's bigger than me, stronger than me. And he said, I don't want to. Can you just do it? And I said, well, I don't think there's a good reason for me to do it other than you just don't want me to do it. And I want to remind you that I'm not your personal assistant. It's really painful for me. And every bone in my body wanted to just hop up and turn that fan because I wanted him to be comfortable. But I realized if he is so uncomfortable that he needs that fan, he will get up and do it because he's fully capable. And I want him to know that, moms are not personal assistants. It was so hard. It was so hard. So I laid there going, you're doing so great. I love you so much. I know this is painful. You're doing a great job. Just keep laying here. It's okay. He's safe. Everyone's going to be okay. Oh, so on that note, I am going to close us off with that quote that I started with, that you don't owe anyone a version of you that distracts them from their responsibility to face their own pain. That's not your job. You are not here to make people feel better. You are not here to make everyone more comfortable. You are not here to take care of everyone. You are here on this planet just to experience being on this planet, right? There is no reason why at birth we should say half of these people are going to be servants and the other half get to just go have fun and get power and live it up and do everything they like. That doesn't make sense. That's what the patriarchy says. Okay. So that is not why you are here. At least that's not what I believe. I believe you're here just to experience love and give love and be loved. And I am sending you so much love. I'm going to keep sewing. I've got my little heart here. Let's see if I can show you. Got my little heart here, and you just sew away and think about these. You can rewatch this if you want. You can just turn on some nice music and think more about what does it mean to that you've experienced the patriarchy, and how has it affected your life? And how would you like to consider coming to yourself with love and compassion and saying, oh, I see that this has happened and I'm going to take care of you now. Okay. Sending you all so much love. Be sweet to yourself before we meet again. And the next one we're going to look at is cultural. Okay. So we're going to go even more into it on how this is just everywhere and in everything. Okay. Love you, love you, love you.